Imagine this. You walk into a dealership in December 2025, ready to buy the car you've been eyeing for months, only to find the price has jumped by $3,000. Same model, same trim, same options, but now it's thousands more. What happened? This isn't just inflation. This is the cost of a global trade war hitting your driveway. In this video, we're unpacking why new car prices in America are about to spike. And it's not the usual suspects like chip shortages or dealer markups. It's bigger than that. From sweeping new tariffs to rising manufacturing costs and shifting international supply chains, the rules of the game are changing fast. And if you're not paying attention, you could end up paying the price. So before you sign that lease or lock in that financing, you need to understand what's coming. Because waiting even a few months might cost you thousands. We've got the facts, the figures, and the strategies to help you beat the surge and maybe even save your next car deal. If this sounds like the kind of insight you want more of, hit that subscribe button and join us here at Car Today Reviews. We cut through the noise to bring you smart, honest, and sharp takes on the auto world every day. Let's dive in. Since early 2025, the U.S. has fundamentally reshaped its approach to international trade, especially when it comes to cars. In a sweeping move aimed at reshoring industry and protecting domestic jobs, the government imposed a 25% tariff on all imported cars and auto parts from Mexico and Canada. That alone was enough to rattle the market. But on top of that, a steep 50% tariff on imported steel and aluminum has pushed raw material costs through the roof. The result? The average effective tariff rate for automakers has shot up to more than 18%, and someone has to foot the bill. Spoiler alert, it's not the manufacturers. What we're seeing now is a classic domino effect. Car makers operating in North America rely heavily on cross-border supply chains. Engines from Mexico, transmissions from Canada, body panels from Asia. With tariffs making every component more expensive, automakers have little choice but to pass those costs down to the consumer. According to Cox Automotive, these new trade policies have already cost automakers over $25 billion in 2025 alone. Break that down, and you're looking at roughly $2,500 in added costs per vehicle just from tariffs. And this isn't a distant threat. Goldman Sachs is projecting that car prices in the U.S. will climb by $2,000 to $4,000 over the next 6 to 12 months. That's not speculation, that's a direct line between government policy and the sticker price you'll see at your local dealership. This is more than just economics. It's a structural shift that's reshaping how and how much we pay for new cars in America. Let's talk specifics. The numbers don't lie, and they're hitting hard. Ford, one of America's automotive giants, reported an $800 million cost increase in Q2 2025 alone, directly tied to tariffs. That's not just a line item buried in a financial statement, that's translating to real-world price hikes. Vehicles like the Mustang Mach-E and the Maverick pickup, which are both assembled in Mexico, are now seeing an average of $2,000 added to their U.S. sticker prices. These aren't luxury models. These are mainstream vehicles that many Americans have been eyeing as affordable EV and hybrid options. Now take Honda. In Q2 2025, their profits were slashed in half. Yes, halved, due to a staggering 450 billion yen tariff burden. That's around $3 billion US dollars. And this came after the company had already tried to renegotiate trade terms to soften the blow. If a global powerhouse like Honda is struggling to stay ahead of the cost curve, smaller brands are in even deeper water. Even Rivian, a company born and bred in the US, isn't immune. Despite being an American EV startup, Rivian sources many of its components internationally: batteries, chips, even structural aluminum. In 2025, the company warned investors that tariffs could raise its per-unit production costs by several $1,000s. That's not just bad news for Rivian's bottom line, it also means fewer incentives for customers and higher prices across the board. When startups lose margin, consumers lose choice. Across the board, these aren't just accounting issues. These are industry-shaping shifts, and they're making their way directly to showroom floors. If you're buying a car in 2025, the brand name won't protect you from rising prices.
Whether it's legacy players like Ford and Honda or emerging innovators like Rivian, everyone's feeling the squeeze and passing it on to you. Consumers aren't waiting around to get priced out. They're acting fast. According to Cox Automotive, new vehicle prices in the U.S. spiked by 2.5% in April 2025 alone. To put that into perspective, that's more than double the typical month-to-month increase. The reason? Tariff panic. Buyers saw what was coming and they rushed to the lots to lock in prices before things got worse. And they were right to do it. Jonathan Smoke, chief economist at Cox, projects that car prices will rise between 4 and 8% by the end of the year. That might not sound catastrophic until you realize that the biggest hit will be to vehicles under $30,000. These are the price points where most Americans live. They're the cars students, families, and working class buyers depend on. And in this economy, the gap between affordable and out of reach is razor thin. Then there's the bigger picture. Alex Parts, a global consulting firm that tracks automotive trends, estimates that automakers will pass along 80% of their tariff costs directly to consumers. That means roughly $1,760 extra baked into every new vehicle on average. And it's not just speculation. We're already seeing it. As soon as the tariffs hit, buyers flooded showrooms and online platforms. Dealers saw the rush and adjusted pricing upward, capitalizing on demand before supply constraints made it worse. So what does this mean for you? If you're in the market for a car, especially something budget-friendly, waiting might not be your friend. The data is clear. Prices are rising faster than expected, and the market is reacting in real time.
Not all price hikes are created equal, and the difference comes down to where your car is built and what it's built from. Imported models are taking the biggest hit, especially those coming from the European Union, Japan, and South Korea. According to Cox Automotive, vehicles imported from the EU could face as much as $8,500 in additional tariffs per unit. That's not a typo. $8,500 added on top of an already premium price tag. Cars from Japan and Korea are slightly less impacted, but still face around $4,000 in added cost per vehicle due to the new trade policy landscape. But here's the ticker. Even if your next car is built in the US, it's not immune. That's because tariffs aren't just hitting finished vehicles, they're hammering the supply chain. Core materials like steel, aluminum, and copper are now subject to elevated duties, and the price impact is real. For a typical US assembled vehicle, just the increased cost of raw materials and imported parts can add over $1,000 to the final sticker price. In other words, the badge on the hood might say Made in America, but the bill still reflects a global supply chain under pressure. This is especially painful for automakers who rely on international parts to keep production lines moving. From brake systems to electronics, the cost of almost every major component is rising, and there's only so much margin to absorb it. At a certain point, those costs trickle down to you. So whether you're eyeing a German luxury SUV or a mid-size sedan built in Ohio, the economic forces at play are tightening across the board. The auto market in 2025 is experiencing what economists call the pull-ahead effect, an accelerated buying spree sparked by fear of looming price hikes. As news of the tariffs spread earlier this year, thousands of consumers rushed into dealerships hoping to lock in prices before increases kicked in. The result? New vehicle inventory thinned out much faster than expected, especially for popular models under $40,000. That early demand surge created an imbalance in the supply chain, one that automakers and dealers are still scrambling to recover from. Today, that inventory shortfall is beginning to bite. Promotions are drying up, dealer incentives are shrinking, and buyers who waited too long are facing limited options and higher prices. For many vehicles, especially hybrids and crossovers in the mid-range segment, dealer stock has fallen to its lowest point in 2 years. And as inventory tightens, consumer leverage weakens. Gone are the days when you could walk into a dealership and negotiate thousands off MSRP. In today's climate, the car you want might not even be available, let alone discounted. TD Economics forecasts a 4% drop in overall U.S. auto sales for 2025, driven largely by shrinking affordability and reduced inventory. And if tariffs continue or expand into 2026, they warn that the decline could worsen. For consumers, that means fewer choices, less room to negotiate, and a higher likelihood of paying premium prices for vehicles that just months ago were far more accessible. So what can you do? In a market where prices are rising, inventories are thinning, and incentives are vanishing. First and foremost, don't wait too long. If you're in the market for a new vehicle and see one that fits your needs and budget, especially if it's already on the lot and likely arrived before the full weight of the tariffs hit, this might be your best window. Cars sitting in dealer stock from earlier in 2025 were imported or built under older cost structures, and once those are gone, newer shipments will reflect the added tariffs. You'll also want to prioritize vehicles that are either built in the US or fall under USMCA compliance. These models may not entirely escape price increases, but they're far less exposed to the steepest import duties. Automakers like Toyota, Honda, and even Hyundai assemble many popular models in North America, which could help soften the blow on pricing. Similarly, Ford, GM, and Stellantis, while not immune to raw material tariffs, often have more inventory flexibility with domestically built vehicles. Expect dealer incentives and rebates to continue drying up through the end of 2025. As manufacturers begin absorbing billions in added costs, they're pulling back on promotions, focusing instead on preserving margins. That means fewer cashback offers, tighter EPR deals, and reduced lease incentives. If you're counting on an end-of-year clearance sale, you might be disappointed. There's also the certified pre-owned route. While the used car market has seen its own pricing volatility, CPO vehicles remain somewhat insulated from the tariff storm. They're not directly affected by the new duties, and many still come with factory warranties and dealership service perks. If you can't find a new model within budget, this might be your best hedge, especially if you need a car before 2026. Bottom line, informed timing and smart targeting can still save you thousands, but this isn't a market to play the waiting game. Here's the bottom line. If you're planning to buy a car in late 2025, expect to pay anywhere between $2,000 to $4,000 more than you would have earlier this year. That's not speculation. That's not media hype. That's the real, measurable cost of tariffs working their way down the supply chain, into materials, into manufacturing, into dealership pricing. And it's already showing up on the sticker. Every month from now counts. As dealer stock turns over and incentives dry up, waiting could cost you thousands, literally. Whether you're eyeing a daily commuter, a family SUV, or even an EV, the price pressures aren't going away soon. In fact, for many buyers, now might be the smartest moment to act.
We want to hear from you. What are prices looking like at your local dealership? Are you seeing sticker shock already? Drop your experience in the comments. We're tracking what's happening on the ground across the country. And don't forget to subscribe to Car Today Reviews. We're following this story closely, and we'll be bringing you more deep dives into how tariffs are reshaping the car market, especially for electric vehicles, hybrids, and family SUVs. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.